pitches on that last segment sounded like this.
That's great.
But this whole Silicon Valley analogy, I think, is apt, because I do think that this is really the state's next Silicon Valley. And it's going to be, if you look, I have no doubt, and again, I couldn't tell you which things are going to pan out, but I have no doubt 20 to 30 years from now, when you look back at this period in medical history, that it'll be viewed as one of the absolute watershed, game-changing periods because of the stuff Larry's working on and all the other things that we're funding. And so we're cautiously optimistic, but I think everybody believes, just like Larry just put so eloquently, that this is the wave of the medical future.
And Silicon Valley from like 1955 to 1967, 68, 70 was government money, and then the VCs took over. When did the VCs take over this and become the primary source of funds as opposed to government dollars?
The way, and I'm not sure the VCs are going to be the first big money in the game, frankly, because they've just gone through a period where VCs have gotten burned in general, not necessarily in life science, but overall. So they're kind of standoffish. The standard answer to that is when you get through the end of phase 2, when you have proof of concept, is when the VCs usually come in. But what we're seeing now, and this is interesting, is that the pharma, who historically has been standoffish, has gone through a decade of massive amount of R&D that hasn't really led to much, and they're now changing their paradigm and thinking, instead of trying to do everything in-house, we need to start forming strategic alliances with the smaller, nimbler, early-stage guys so that they have funding that's at the end of the tunnel and we have pipeline. And so what we're now starting to see is pharma is getting into the game earlier than it had in the past, and in some cases way before the end of phase 2. The VC guys are still not at that stage yet. They're not going to. Do you see it differently than that?
No, I completely agree. In fact, the VCs have become much more conservative. The problem with medical research is that the timeline for return on investment is not as short as it is in software or technology, and yet the long-term value and ultimately importance is tremendous, right? When you get right down to it, what do people really care about? Their health. But I think in terms of a pattern, it follows more or less the same pattern, which is that relatively small amounts of public investment in early stages leads to the creation of knowledge, methods, insights that then are appropriately developed by private capital, large companies. With Silicon Valley, I think it's much the same. It was, Vannevar Bush and the aftermath of World War II and the realization that, science really did win that war.